last word. Yeah. Yeah. So what for folks who have done mutual aid, yes, collective action. So one of the patterns is collective action. Collectively driven solutions to collective problems. Yep. So there's a lot of collectivity here, right? A lot of by us, for us, people power. Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of community, and I'm seeing a lot of operation outside of like the traditional institutions, right? I'm seeing a lot of solidarity. Okay, fantastic. So I'm gonna keep it moving because it seems like y'all have pretty much grasped that part of it. So we're gonna jump into some common threads. All right. So as folks said in the chat, it's for us, by us, right? Mutual aid is this radical idea that we got us, right? The people got us, the community got us, we got each other. And only we know how to take care of us, right? No one outside of here can come and tell me how I take care of my community, right? Someone who doesn't even live here. So we take care of ourselves. Another pattern of mutual aid is that we recognize that we're interdependent and interconnected, right? So mutual aid is at its heart an idea deals with the fact that we are very much connected, right? If you study ecology, this is a basic ecological lesson, that we're part of a web of life, right? This is something that Native peoples have known for forever, right? That science has just now catched up on. And what I'm really saying at the core of that is that like my success is your success and your failure is my failure. And so when I invest in you, and that's really not a great word, but when I take care of you, I am taking care of myself. It is a recognition, a very core truth that we are one, right? I know it can sound cliche, but it really is. And I think we're living that now, right? With all of these crises that we're facing, we're really feeling the brunt of it now, right? And so we see this fact of life everywhere, right? In ecology, in public health, in a wide range of fields, right? And hello, pandemic, as I said, right? So there's no escaping it. This is a fact of life. Cool. So similarly to point one, is this fact that we know best, right? When I say we, I'm saying like community members. We are the experts. We are the experts of our lives and we know best. There's no need for others, outsiders, hint, read the state, right? There's no need for outsiders to interfere or run our lives because we can fix the problems that others have created, right? I'm sure you folks have heard a lot of times where they're like, we can't use the same thinking that got us into these problems, right? We didn't create these problems. So we can solve them using creative thinking. So community are the experts. Additionally, in academia, there's this idea of place-based knowledge, right? It's very, very documented, meaning because we exist in this place, we are experts of this place. A similar vein is the idea of lived experience, right? This idea that because I have lived 35 years in my body with my identities, I am the expert of the life that I have lived, right? And it follows that we're experts in the communities that we reside in. So I want to caution, this is not meant to be interpreted as like knowing it all, which we will get into later. This is a recognition that by virtue of lived experience, AKA time, reflection, learning, awareness, we hold knowledge of our surroundings and our life. Okay, let's see if we can piss off people with this one. Mutual aid is against and without the state. Let me say that louder. Mutual aid is against and without the state. The very core of what mutual aid is, in its praxis and its authentic praxis, is against and without the state, right? By its very nature, it is what it is. There's really no changing it, right? It's antagonistic to the state. There has been at least one political campaign in LA who has chosen to hijack mutual aid and say that they practice it. That's not possible. The mayor of LA, some like federal institutions say they practice mutual aid. That's not possible, right? And I have remained throughout the course of like our mutual aid network. And when we started this at the beginning of the pandemic, I was very adamant about that. I'm still adamant about that. We do not participate that. We do not collaborate with the state. We do not work with the state. We do not align with the state. Okay. All right. I'm going to take, give you a minute to just take this in, this graphic in. Yep, Ryan, I'm aware that, yeah, an upside down flag. So Ryan brings up a good point. An upside down flag is a military signal for distress. Absolutely. I would say that we are in distress. And as a combat veteran who occupied Iraq, I think I could read the signs, and we've been in distress for a long time, actually. So yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah, because I realize folks may not have that military experience, and so yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Okay, back to the current slide. Like Kendrick Lamar said, be humble, sit down, right? Referring back to my point about like, we don't know everything, right? Part of the praxis of mutual aid is being humble that we don't know everything. And it's super important to have a good grasp of what we don't know that we don't know, right? Which is that red box out there, which is like unknown unknowns, right? So always be on your toes, always be trying to learn. Everybody has something to teach you, right? And I really cannot emphasize this point enough, especially with, you know, the pandemic, especially with just everything that's coming and being thrown at us. We got to stay on our toes, and we got to be flexible about everything that we're doing. So any questions on the last 5 slides so far? Type it in the chat for me. Okay, perfect. We're rocking and rolling. Okay, so I'm going to move faster. These are pretty basic concepts, but they're important to cover. Mutual aid decisions are made horizontally and collectively based on consensus. Okay, this is how we differ from charity. This is how we differ from the world that has caused these problems. We're not hierarchical. We don't make those decisions. There can be, in my experience, a little bit of like holocratic, where you have like committees who are making decisions along a horizontal plane. But for the most part, it's a horizontal arrangement. And those decisions are made by consensus, right? And you can decide, is it modified consensus? Is it, do we resort to voting? What are the processes for that, right? And it's important to talk about those things when you're doing praxis with people. The proof is in the process. How you do things, how you move in this world is part of how we do mutual aid, right? So taking consideration and being thoughtful and intentional about that will not only save you heartache down the line, but it also says a lot about how you're moving in community, right? Mutual aid is a way of being. So recently, with the pandemic and everything, I've seen a lot of folks, you know, treat mutual aid as like a hobby or a project or like a fad. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of being. A way of being, a way of moving through this world that is in right relationship with our relatives, with nature, with everything, right? So, you know, I'm Indigenous. I've been Indigenous for almost 35 years. And I didn't know what mutual aid was until actually someone named it for me and labeled it for me this year. And the reason for that is because I've been living my life that way for 35 years. In my community, we don't even name it. I cannot recall right now a name for it, right? It's just what we do. We take care of each other. We look out for each other. That is the way that we move in this world. And so only this year, really, in the last couple years maybe, that I have been introduced to this label of mutual aid, right? So think about it that way, right? Like for some of us who don't have the privileges of the white heteronormative, like patriarchy, cis, all that stuff, this is a way of being. And really, that's how I would really like to see us move in this world, right? At the very core of our being. Okay, I really cannot emphasize this enough. Mutual aid's roots are radical, Black, and Indigenous. So as I shared from the last slide, this has been a way of life for us, for Indigenous people, for Native people, for Black people, for thousands of years. So it's really important to keep the context, its radical context in mind, and also like who can teach about this, who can facilitate about this, and where you want to go for sources about learning more, right? This is the context that we want to keep it in. This is the framework. Okay, so while practicing mutual aid, you do need to continually be asking yourself, who are you accountable to, right? Is it community? Is it your ego? Is it white saviorism? Is it your notion of charity, right? Like of who's deserving, of who do I get to decide who's deserving and not deserving, right? Are you serving the status quo? Is it the power structures? Who are you in radical solidarity with when you are doing this work, right? Everyone needs accountability. No one is perfect. So me, I'm accountable to my comrades. If they see me fucking up, they know that they can come get me. They can come collect me, and I will do the same for them, right? So when you're doing this work, it's super important to be principled. And that means being accountable to community, right? For us at Mutual Aid Network LA, it's been elders in the community, right? With a focus on Indigenous elders. Early on in the project, we got called out /in by one of our Indigenous elders. I had no idea it was coming. We just jumped on the phone. She gave me an earful, and I could have been mad. I could have been like, wow, like she's calling me out, or she's calling us out, right? But thankfully she took the time to do that. She took the time to collect us and call us in and let us know how we could do better, right? We owed her that much for her time, right? And so we figured it out from there. But definitely continue to ask yourself this question about who you're accountable to, and it should be community. It's an iterative process, like I mentioned previously, responsive to feedback. Every time someone comes to tell you something, you should take that feedback and modify your systems, modify your behavior, to make sure you're getting better and better and better. Any questions on the last 5 slides? Yeah. So iterative, yeah. So empty in the chat says, could iterative be defined? The way that I pictured in my mind is like just a continual loop, right? Going back, yes, exactly, Sasha, thank you. Going back over and again, right, to perfect something, right? It's important to be honest that like we're not going to be perfect, but there's nothing wrong with trying to be, right? To continually trying to meet the needs of our community continuously, right? Yeah, so Kathleen, we covered housekeeping earlier. Plus means you agree with the general point being made. Negative means I don't agree. Okay, so stay open, be flexible. Okay, so here's another one that might ruffle some feathers, hopefully. Put money in people's pockets, period. A lot of folks underestimate the power of cash money, right? They want to buy food, or they want to buy whatever. Like, people are weird about putting money in people's pockets, hands, period. A lot of folks get hung up on this, particularly folks with privilege. Consider this your calling. in my experience, because they're used to being the decision makers. Okay. Y'all are used to controlling accesses and resources. Y'all are used to controlling access and resources. But here's the thing. If we recognize that people are the experts of their lives, then logically, we know that they will do what is best for themselves and their lives, right? So we individually make those decisions. So it's not on us to go ahead and decide what people get to spend their money on, right? Yes, perfect. Thank you, Sasha. So the research shows cash works. Incredible. Who would have known? Poor people need money. We need money. So yes, let's lose that hang up, right? There are going to be some wrinkles in my experience. So when we started getting into some money with our budget, folks had some feels around like tenant organizing, particularly. We had to have numerous conversations around giving folks, direct aid for rent. And we ended up just having those conversations again and again and again and again. We ended up deciding not to, but we did make exceptions, particularly because we wanted to be in radical solidarity with tenants organizing. Latu, if you're not, that'll be my plug for Latu. If you are not on rent strike, please consider it. And also please check out your local chapter, your local outlet for tenants organizing. Yeah, we always want to be in solidarity with each other. And if that means that we don't give people money for rent, which at the end of the day, if we give them the money, they're going to use it on what they want. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation around what tenant strikes means, right? About what rent strike means, right? Remember what we said about challenging unequal power relations, right? So yes, please, Empty, drop it in the chat for me. Yes, Latu member, Nilo, let's go. Yes, they do incredible work. Please check out their work. They're amazing. Okay. Wow, we're doing great on time. Okay, so if you are a person of privilege, this is my opinion. This is where I need you to be. As close to as white hetero cis dude as possible. Your roles are to redistribute your wealth very clearly. Give your land back now if you own any land. Your role is to be in support roles, not in leadership, and not making decisions. It's not on you to be making decisions. I think we've had too much of white people making decisions, if you ask me. So let's take a seat back if you're white, okay? It's particularly a cis dude. And practice cultural humility, okay? Can someone in the chat define for me cultural humility? So cultural humility versus say cultural competence or any of those things that are taught in a more formal environment, like in hospitals and education. Yes, Valeria, sit down, be humble. Radical idea, right? Yes, don't consider that the white way is everyone's way. Yes. So yeah, my own culture experience isn't the center of the human experience. Holy shit, a whole sermon right there. Apologies for the cussing. I do a lot of cussing, y'all. That's just how I feel. Yes, perfect. Sit down, be humble. Y'all have put it a lot. You didn't discover anything. Damn, Valeria's going off in the chat. I love to see it. I love to see it. Okay, listen, cultural humility is essentially not knowing everything and recognizing and continuing to work to learn and be in radical solidarity with folks around you, right? It's the main core of it is that learning is never done. Let me say that again. That learning is never done. You will continue to learn, just like I will continue to learn about cultures that are not mine, my own culture, right? So it's this crazy idea that continual learning, right? About everything in that culture, right? And that if you are a visitor or a guest in that culture, Let's sit down. Let's be humble, right? Perfect. So once again, sit down, be humble. All right, by the famous Kendrick Lamar. Valeria going off on the chat. Okay, next slide. Cool. So mutual aid, as I think you all have gathered by now, is being in radical solidarity, right? What is radical solidarity? We work together as equals through radical means for radical ends. Radical solidarity recognizes that we are all in the same boat, right? On the same earth. Charity is very much a power imbalance and is self-replicating, right? So no charity will ever end poverty. It's a self-replicating cycle, right? So radical solidarity seeks to make itself irrelevant, hopefully, right? Our goal is liberation. Our goal is collective liberation. That is the goal, right? So it's very different. And we'll get into it a little bit more about this comparison and contrast with charity here shortly. Okay, this one's super important too. We all have gifts and talents to contribute, right? This sounds super cliche, but it's true. Our tools are already in hand, right? So whether you are undergrad, whether you're in high school, it does not matter. You have something to contribute to this fight, okay? Okay, small is good, small is all, right? It's important to note that no action is too small or insignificant, right? The most accessible and easiest action you can take is on the individual level, right? I think by now, folks who have joined us, you know this, right? But it's important to mention. Additionally, in the spirit of degrowth, we are becoming less and less a globalized country, thankfully, a globalized people. This is a good thing, right? Corona has forced us in a lot of ways to return to our communities, to look inward. And if we weren't already doing that, right? For answers, for comfort, for help. So small is sustainable, as many of you already know. We hear it all the time, shop local, right? Cook at home, grow your garden, right? Growing your garden is revolutionary. It's the shortest distance and it's the most manageable. And in terms of mutual aid, it's the essence of a personal relationship, right? With the land and what's closest to you. Okay, any questions on the last 5 slides so far? Please drop them in the chat for me. Okay, as I hope I have made it clear, mutual aid is based on relationships, right? I was really grateful that when we started our network, like more formally, a lot of us already knew each other and we worked with each other previously through like Ground Game. So really Ground Game was our incubator for our mutual LA network, right? And it was very instrumental because we were able to leverage their infrastructure to do that work more intentionally, right? To manage, I think, what was the last count of the budget, Emily? Is it like 400K that has been redistributed? So that takes infrastructure. You need PayPal accounts, you need bank, like all of that stuff. So keep that in mind as you think about like who you want to do this work with. It should be with folks that you already have rapport with and that you already have relationships with and that you're aligned with, right? It's really how everything gets done, honestly, is relationships. Okay, cool. We'll have an update soon to be released to the public in terms of like accounting and all that good stuff. Okay, so safety. Okay. When the pandemic started hitting LA, we needed to set up a decontamination process. By training, I was a combat medic in the Army. And so I had to set up from the floor up a decontamination process, an infection control process. It wasn't easy because we didn't know a lot about the virus. We still don't know a lot about the virus. We don't have the benefit of looking back at data and incorporating that into our analysis. And so there were a lot of sleepless nights of insomnia where I was just freaking out about like, oh my God, we're going to kill somebody, right? We're not going to decontaminate properly. We're not going to do things properly. We're going to get somebody killed. We're going to spread this disease. We're going to get somebody killed. Those are real high stakes. It's not a fucking joke, right? So there was a lot of insomnia on my part. And I was very scared to be like, hey, y'all, we cannot move until I have this piece figured out. And thankfully, my comrades were like, girl, don't trip. Like, take your time. Let's talk it out. What do you need? Right. And so we developed a program, right? For the time that I developed that program, it made sense, right? We did it on a large scale. We decontaminated items on a very large scale. And I overshot the safety, right? I wanted to make sure that we killed that virus before we put those groceries out into community, those canned goods out into community, those rice, those beans, right? I wanted to overshoot it, right? And so I ran trainings. I put the, the SOPs in. We did all of the things. Over time, right, it became increasingly clear that we didn't have the capacity to run this anymore, right? And two, it was not sustainable. What do I mean by that? We weren't spreading the knowledge, right? At the time being, it made sense. But as we started to learn more about coronavirus, as we started to get our feet from under us, we realized that we really should be distributing this knowledge about how to decontaminate. And so we started to pivot to neighborhood pods, to a more local, scalable model. And so now we don't do the large scale decontamination process anymore. And we also pivoted to relying a lot more on direct cash aid, right? So folks, we just send money, they buy what they need, they decontaminate it, Gucci, everybody's good, right? So yeah. We particularly have to think a lot about safety right now, right? With the pandemic, it goes without saying. So I also talked about like sustainability, right? You don't want to bite off more than you can chew, just in terms of what you can deliver for community. I say that more so for consistency. When you are in a relationship with people, you want to show up. You want to be consistent. If I'm doing outreach and I say I'm going to be there on Wednesday and I'm not there on Wednesday, that's my ass, right? So be absolutely impeccable about your word. Do not promise things to people if you're not going to deliver, okay? And I think a lot of folks who do outreach particularly can agree with this point, but know what you can deliver and know what you cannot. Do not overpromise, and underdeliver. Okay. There's also an African proverb that I really like that has helped me, that I keep coming back to. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So keep in mind that a lot of times, me personally, I kind of have that problem where I just want to go fast, and I want to do all of the things all the time. That's not sustainable, right? So, and also not intentional and thoughtful, right? So take your time, really chew on things. I know the moment feels really urgent. It is, there's no denying that, but try to find that sweet spot of like what's intentional and what's thoughtful and getting things done right. Because half the battle really is how you move in community, right? Okay, folks. So now I'm going to present to you my totally unscientific study that I did on Facebook with my comrades. Take a look at those comments really quick. So one of my comrades talked about this, empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. Absolutely true, right? Be honest about what you're capable of right now. It's a tough time. It's okay to take care of yourself. And we can learn that the hard way or we can learn that the easy way, as most of us know, I think, by now. And another comrade chimed in with the need to think about systems, right? Which I think is a super interesting point. If you have the capacity and have the infrastructure to start thinking about building systems, I particularly want to hear from you. Let's talk offline. But yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in this, right? That like it's mostly one-on-one, which is awesome. It's the very nature of the work. But at the same time, we also want to be actively building the world we want to see, right? I know a lot of folks are like crazed with the election right now. The election will come and go. This work, that doesn't go anywhere, right? This is long lasting. So the more we can think about like creating systems and institutions that will outlive the state, that will outlive any election, that will outlive any city council, the better.
Wendy, I just want to name we're at about 5:50 just for time.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Got it.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, so here's another couple comments. These are actually some comments from comrades that I've worked with, directly in our network. That top comment actually ended up making masks for us, like assembling a team of sewers for us. And those masks actually got delivered to folks who were released from detention in Adelanto, and also to refugees down in Tijuana. So it's incredibly important to have relationships. And that comrade particularly, she and I go back like a decade. So you can see how like it's dependent. Relationships are just the core of this work. Okay, I think this is the last one we get before we get into the compare and contrast. Yeah, and here's another comment about like giving people money directly, right? Okay, any questions thus far? We're almost done on this piece and then we can get to work. If you have a question, drop it in the chat for me. Okay, so now we're going to get into some compare and contrast with charity that I think is particularly important, because we really need to unlearn this concept of charity and we need a new framework. We have it, it's mutual aid, but I want to make these nuances and these complexities very explicit. Okay, so this is courtesy of Higher Priestess. They're amazing. Pretty self-explanatory. Mutual aid utilizes whatever resources are available. Charity often wait until substantial grants or donations are made until taking action, right? And these are points that I want you to keep in mind, because as you go into your breakout groups, you're going to go ahead and connect these dots. We talked about this earlier, making collaborative decisions, right? Versus in charity, particularly if you work in the nonprofit industrial complex, you know that the executive director, the program directors, they make the decisions, right? It's not necessarily up for discussion. And actually, if you want to trace that further back, the people who make the decisions are the donors of that capital, right? So all the foundations, all the so-called philanthropists and whatnot. Okay, so in mutual aid, it's the people doing the things, right? In charity, we see this a lot, right? People give because they want to look good. They post it on social media. We all see this with like missionaries who go to like Africa or the global South to gain some kind of social capital, right? To look good. This next one, focus on everyone indiscriminately. Charity often has like means tests, right? They want you to jump through hoops. They want you to like prove that you deserve this money, right? Me particularly, when we did it in the network, I set up the process, well, it's a continual process, but I kept urging folks to focus on Black folks, to focus on trans folks, to have that priority be number one, right? Our most marginalized are those who should get the most immediate attention, right? Because what ended up happening is we got overrun by requests. And I mean overrun. I mean, once we opened the forum up to folks, we just got so many requests, right? That we needed to have some kind of system. And so the best way, I think, in my opinion, is to immediately focus on Black folks, on Indigenous folks, on trans folks, on queer folks, right? And start moving on that. Yeah, we got thousands of requests. So yeah, in theory, in spirit, focus on everyone indiscriminately. But when we got bombarded like that, I think one of the best options that we had was to focus on the most marginalized. And if you're into like urban planning and design, check out what's called the curb cut effect. There's a really great history there for anyone who wants to go down a rabbit hole. Okay. We covered this as well. Anyone in the community who comes together to care for others with their various skills. In charity, it's professionalized work, right? You need degrees, you need connections, that kind of thing. Okay, and here's another critical difference too, right? We understand and we address the roots of systemic inequality, right? In charity, it's a self-propagating poverty model, right? You give people money, but you're not making too many waves. You're still in service of the status quo, right? Yeah, triage. Yep. And so here's another one just to drive the point home. All right, so now it's up to y'all. What else? What did we miss here? What are some things for those that have experience in this work? What else do we need to know about mutual aid? Go ahead and chime in the chat for me. Yeah, thank you, Emily, for that. Yes, charity is unfortunately very donor-centered. Lots of proving that you're poor. So much paperwork in charity for the state and grants. Yup. Bye, Hans. Take care. Okay, so I'm gonna hold space just a tiny bit more. If folks know something that I missed, let me know. Looking at you, comrades. Yes, excellent point. So it matters who does the needs assessment and triage, right? And this is why like it was an uphill battle. Well, in a lot of ways, because I think we're just so used to white people being like, I know what's good and I know what's good for people. And so it's critical to do political education as you're doing this work, and y'all are doing it right now, but it's an ongoing thing, right? Of unlearning that like we know what's best for other people, right? So, I lost the chat. Yes, so Brittany, thank you so much for that point. Sarah too has a great point. All of your skills can be applied, for example, like in peer support, helping someone navigate forms, right? This is, or emotional support. This is particularly useful to me. I think this comes just from being like in combat or, you know, having PTSD, is the fact that like, I can't make an appointment for shit. I hate it. It's, I freeze. I'm terrified. I have terrible follow through. So trust me, there are no small roles, as they say in theater. All your skills are valuable. Chase and Issa, You have a question regarding, do folks have perspectives on stealing money from institutions through grant applications? I'm going to hypothetically answer that question and say, I hypothetically agree with liberating. Yes. Hypothetically, allegedly. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know you. Very specific example. Yes. So Eleanor also has a great point. Very specific example, but with money redistribution, we realized actual cash was a need versus sending via Venmo, PayPal, etc., because not everyone has a bank account. Yes. Being able to pivot to truly meet the needs of the community, of our community, was super important. Yeah. So excellent point, Eleanor. As the pandemic rages on, a lot of people, a lot of retailers are pivoting away, as I'm sure y'all have seen, into more like plastic, more debit, more credit card. So we tend to forget about the folks who are unbanked, right? Who don't have their money in banks. And so having cash on hand, particularly for undocumented folks, maybe unhoused folks, is a very important thing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that's another thing too that I'm really grateful for with Mutual Aid LA, is that our triage process really shifted because we were women of color led, right? And so thankfully, a lot of our white people were like, sit down, be humble. That was their attitude. So we didn't have a lot of issues around like white people acting crazy. Yeah. And that's really important, right? Yes, perfect. Mondo Medina giving us experience from the streets. The way we redistributed the money was to buy food cards from local markets and give them to families. Yeah, perfect. Yep. Also, Peter raises up a good point. Cash, no digital paper trail, right? And language justice. Yes, absolutely. So always be thinking about language justice and accessibility. That should come first and foremost, anything that you do too. Yes, thank you so much for raising that, Sarah. Okay. So now, go ahead and take note of these, or actually, Frankie, if you want to drop these in the chat, y'all are going to go ahead and go into breakout rooms, where hopefully we have arranged you by geolocations. I would like for you, please, to answer these questions, and have conversations around like what you're doing, what you're up to, what do you need right now? How can we link that up? And we'll also broadcast it out to the breakout rooms. So Frankie, take it away. And as a heads up, you have approximately 25 minutes. So feel free to exchange info too, if you feel comfortable doing so. One of the main goals of this workshop was to get you linked up to folks who are already doing the work, and or new folks or whatever. So keep that in mind. Any questions before we go into breakout rooms? Okay, Frankie, hit it.
So I just want to say you'll all get sent to a room. If you feel like you're in the wrong room or I misread your text or anything, feel free to message me and I can move you around, but you should get a prompt in just a moment here. And a few folks I messaged who I didn't see in the chat where you were at. So if you're still kind of hanging out here once the room's open, we'll check in with you and make sure you get set up in a room that feels good. All right, here we go. So let's see, Michael and Timothy, do you have, we have Northeast LA, West LA, Central LA, Pacific Northwest, and Bay Area rooms open. Do you have a preference or want to join any of those breakout rooms?
I'm in West LA, so that works best.
Awesome.
What up, Tim?
Hey.
That's my comrade.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Let's see, how do I, now that this is open? Okay, let's see.
Thank you for being here, Tim.
Yeah, no, it's been going really well so far. I'm really impressed with everything you put together.
Thanks, fam.
Yeah, no, this is it's a good thing you scheduled it tonight because Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays I've got EMT class. So
Oh, we need to link up about that. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's good. I'm looking at next September going to West LA's paramedic program. So I'm gonna hop into this breakout room now.
Baller. Oh my god, I'm gonna fucking cry.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh my god. So so we've medic together and they're my comrade.
That's so sick.
Yeah, and now they're pursuing EMT and now they want to go for the paramedic.
That's incredible.
I'm so proud.
Wow, cool.
God. Michael, are you here? Would you like to join a breakout group? Anybody home?
Wendy, do you want to join any of these rooms? We have them all open. You can hang here, whatever.
I think I'm gonna hang here, drink some water,
Sweet.
order my dinner.
Nice. And how are you feeling timing wise? Do you want to adjust at all, or do you still feel like we can come back around 6:25?
Yeah, let's do 6:30.
Okay.
So what I want to do is we're going to like quick takeaways for about 10. Keep me honest on time. Okay. We could do brainstorm takeaways, but really, I mean, I think that hopefully the magic is going to happen in these rooms, for them to like do the things. So
awesome. Yeah.
So I want to allow for as much space as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we go to 45. I keep pushing it. Let's go to like 6:35. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. We'll do takeaways for 15 minutes, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll close it out.
I'm just setting a timer.
Yeah. You keep me honest, Frankie.
It looks like everyone's in a room now, so
good.
That's great. And they can message me if they like want to move around or have any questions or anything like that.
Yeah. Sweet. And I also feel like we don't get a ton of the random arrangements anymore, like bumping into people. So I'm particularly interested to see how this turns out.
Yeah, definitely. Just like shared space where you don't know who to expect. Yeah, it's great. And yeah, I'm excited. There's a few students. There were enough people to kind of make its own Northeast LA section. So there's like a kind of Pasadena, Highland Park, Lincoln Heights section with some students.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna take a bathroom break really quick.
Great.
I'll be back.
Sounds good.
Shortly.
Take your time.
BRB. Oh, this is...
Oh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Oh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Shimmy, y'all, shimmy, yeah. Give me the mic so I can take it home with me. Off on the natural charge, bomb for y'all. Yeah, from the home of the Dodger Brooklyn squad. Wu-Tang Killer, beats on the swarm. Rain on the knowledge that's just so calm. When you didn't even touch my skill, you got the one to the beat, and he ain't gonna kill now. Chop that down, pass it all around. Lyrics get hard, put cement to the ground. For the MC and any 52 states, I get psycho. Killer, Norman Bates, my producer slam. My phone's like, damn, jump on stage, and then I dip there. Oh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Oh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Oh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. House nigga, yes, he's keeping feeling Israel. Wham, look at every skin ball, they turn. Wham, what's happening? And I plan, shimmy, shimmy, y'all, shimmy, yeah. Give me the mic so I can take it away. Or for the natural charge, bon voyage. Yeah, from the home of the Dodgers, Brooklyn squad. Wu-Tang Killer, he's on the swarm. Rain on the college ass, this so dumb. When you didn't even touch my skill, you got the one killer, be anyway, never kill now. Drop that down, pass all around. Lyrics get hard, we cement to the ground. For any MC and any 52 states, I get psycho. Killer on the bass, my producer slam. Always like, bam, jump on stage and then I been there. Shimmy, shimmy, y'all. Yeah. Shimmy, shimmy, y'all. Shimmy, yeah, shimmy, 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 yeah. Give me the mic so I can take it away. Shimmy, shimmy, y'all.
Eres mi alma, eres mi cielo, eres mi vida, mi amor y te quiero. Sin ti mi vida no tendría sueños. Ven, dame un beso que tanto quiero. Yo quiero sentirte, yo quiero decirte, mi amor, te quiero más, te amo de verdad. Yo quiero sentirte, yo quiero decirte, eres de vida, mi amor, alegra mi corazón. Todo me gusta de ti. Sentimiento, el sabor de aroma, su confusión, para ti. Cielo azul, son tus lindos ojos, me descubrí la boca, como la descubrido cuerpo. Todo me gusta de ti. Cielo azul, son tus lindos ojos, me descubrí la boca, como la descubrido cuerpo. Todo me gusta de ti. sentirte, yo quiero decirte, desde vida mi amor, alegra mi corazón. Todo me gusta de ti. ¿Cómo que? Todo me gusta de ti. Cielo azul, con tus lindos ojos median, tu linda boca, como la de tu lindo cuerpo. Todo me gusta de ti. Cielo azul, con tus lindos ojos median, tu linda boca, como la de tu lindo cuerpo. Todo me gusta de ti. Vida mía, guárdate la poesía, guárdate la alegría para ti. Pido que todos los días sean de sol. Pido que todos los viernes sean una fiesta. Todos te pido que vuelvas a normal. Si lloras con los ojos secos, ay, amor, me duele tanto, me duele tanto. Fuera sin decir a dónde, ay, amor, fue una figura. Yo sé que no he sido un santo, pero no puedo arreglar. No solo de partir el hombre niño de sus archivos. Solo errores aprende y hoy sé que es tuyo mi corazón. Mejor te guardas todo, eso te perra con ese pasión, ese instinto. Te puedo pedir que el invierno perdone un rosal. Te puedo pedir a los olmos que primavera. Te puedo pedirle lo eterno a un simple mortal y andar arrojando a los cerdos miles de perlas. Ay, amor, me duele tanto, me duele tanto. Que no creas más en mis promesas. Ay, amor, es una tortura. Yo sé que no he sido un santo, pero no puedo arreglar. No solo de partir el hombre, no me excusa, chido yo. Solo errores aprende y hoy sé que es tuyo mi corazón. Déjate guardar todo, es otra perra con ese pasión, es que no salió. No te bajes, oye negrita, mira, no te rajes. De lunes a viernes tiene mi amor, déjame sábado, que es mejor de mi vida. No me castigues más porque de afuera, y no te bajes. No me retiro, y como nadie te vuelves conmigo. Yo sé que no he sido un santo, y es que no estoy hecho de cartón. No solo de partir el hombre, no me excusa, chido yo. Solo errores aprende y hoy sé que es tuyo mi corazón. Ay, ay. a mis sentidos con solo tocar mi piel. Y como a mí también. Otro hombre solo puede suceder. Que solo por un beso se puede enamorar. Sin necesidad de hablarse, solo los labios rozarse. no las flechará. Y solo por un beso, con ella soy feliz. Tan solo con un besito me llevo al infinito y ni siquiera la conozco bien. Eso significa amistad, sexo y amor en cualquier parte del mundo, no importa la religión. Por un beso de su boca voy al cielo y hablo con Dios, alcanzo las estrellas de emoción. Su boca es tan sensual, me cautiva y me excita, no me canso de besar. Su lengua es mi debilidad. Ella sabe los truquitos, díganme si hay alguien más. Solo por un beso se puede enamorar. Sin necesidad de hablarse, solo los labios rozarse, Cupido los flechará. Y solo por un beso, con ella soy feliz. Tan solo con un besito me llevo al infinito y ni siquiera me conozco bien. Un beso significa amistad, sexo y amor en cualquier parte del mundo, no importa la religión. Por un beso de su boca voy al cielo y hablo con Dios. Ahora más que nunca te necesito junto a mí. No abandones mi amor, que me he entregado a ti, no puedo sobrevivir, necesito tu calor. Ahora más que nunca te necesito junto a mí. No abandones mi amor, que me he entregado a ti, no puedo sobrevivir, necesito tu calor. El abandonarme, para ti el abandonarme, llevándote mis sentimientos, llevándote mis sentimientos. Para ti el abandonarme, para ti el abandonarme, llevándote mis sentimientos, llevándote mis sentimientos. Me duele al saber que sigan pasando en tu sendero de amor y que te vas a marchar sin motivo ni razón, lo dice mi corazón. Me duele al saber que sigan pasando en tu sendero de amor y que te vas a marchar sin motivo ni razón, lo dice mi corazón. Para ti el abandonarme, para ti el abandonarme, llevándote mis sentimientos, llevándote mis sentimientos. Para ti el abandonarme, para ti el abandonarme, llevándote mis sentimientos, llevándote mis sentimientos.
How you doing, Frankie? Yeah, get that snack. I can't hear you.
That button gets me every time. I was just gonna say I'm gonna start the closeout process because they'll get like a minute warning to finish up their conversations and then come back to join us here.
Yeah, sounds good. In fact, if you want to give them, what time did we say?
6:35. So it's like 2 minutes.
You know what? I think, damn, this is crazy. This never happens. 37, 33. Okay. Yeah, because I'm forgetting about Q&A. Okay. Yeah. Good call.
Sounds good. So let's see. We had a few folks who had to leave something about like work stuff going on. So I combined a few of the smaller rooms.
Okay.
Everyone got to be in some conversation, which is great.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so folks should start trickling.
When the sun come on in the club, they gon' be like, damn, that's hot. But when they play it in the car, they gon' drop their tops like, damn, that's hot. They gon' mix it with.
It was all a dream. We got everybody, Frankie?
Yeah, I think so. Welcome back.
Okay. I just love this song. All right. We'll get back into the group later. Okay, folks. I hope that was good, and hopefully y'all got to meet some folks that you didn't know, and also got to connect with folks who you may not have, met before. So let's get into, if we missed something from the pre-breakout chat, would it be possible to get that info via email? Says empty. Could you clarify missed something? Because
I'm sorry, Wendy. My apologies. I saved the chat with the buttons on the left, right. Oh shoot. Okay. Well, I unfortunately didn't do that, but I will know to do that next time. But I'm just thinking that several people provided their email addresses and/or other contact information pre-breakout in the chat, and now I don't know where that lives now.
So I'm pretty sure we can get you a transcript of the conversations included in the follow-up email. Is that correct, Frankie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my question is just folks' comfort with sharing that out outside of this. So maybe if you want to message someone you were in a breakout room with to get their info. Oh, the breakout room chat, the chat from your breakout room. Is that what you're asking?
Well, before the breakouts, the chat before the breakouts. From our breakout room, I've got everything that I wanted to get, but I believe I missed some things prior to us being assigned to breakout rooms.
Okay.
Sorry to break in.
We can send that out.
All there.
It's all the transcripts, and it should all be there in the chat, and 2, we can also send that out if folks are comfortable with that, unless there's some strong objections. If you have a strong objection, please let us know. We'll do our best to scrub the list. But there is a follow-up email to clarify following this workshop where Frankie will put together a transcript for us, and then you can peruse on there like what you need. It's my understanding that no conversation on Zoom is private, which is a good thing, I think. Depends. We'll find out. Stay tuned.
And I'll just say, if anyone doesn't feel comfortable with your info, if you dropped it in earlier, just send me a message right now and we won't include that. But I can send that out in the follow-up email with the recording as well.
Cool. All right, so let's get back on track. Hit me with the brainstorm takeaways, y'all. So give me some high level system points, just anything that you found useful coming back from those breakout rooms. Drop it in the chat for me. And then as a reminder, please put yourself on mute if you're not already. Drop in the chat for me. What was useful out of that breakout room? What was good? Yes, Eleanor, no skill is too small. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, all skills are good for the revolution. We need all kinds of people. Yes, amazing. No skills too small. Everyone needs support. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We always needed support, right? But especially right now. Yes, thank you so much for that, Savannah. Relationship building is key. Yes, Lainey, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, making pod connections and laying the groundwork for new pods. Tim, chiming in with the expertise on there. Excellent, Natasha. I'm glad you got to connect with folks who can help you connect with your neighborhood pod. That was a goal of this. Amazing. Yes, Emily, take leadership from BIPOC. That's Black, Indigenous, People of Color. That's the acronym. Oh my God, yes. So honor your capacity, right? Be honest and truthful and radical about what you need and your boundaries. We cannot burn both candles at both ends, right? I've been relearning this lesson my entire life. And I think I'm better at like honoring that, but always a good lesson to return to. Yes, amazing, Ellen. Connected with people who can help me brainstorm and connect better with my community. Fantastic. Yes, thank you, Emily. Be receptive to feedback, not defensive, right? When people offer you feedback, it's really a gift. Our first reaction may be to be like, how dare you, you know, came from my wig. Sometimes people do, it's all good. But the fact is that like when people take the time out of their day to call you in, that's a gift, right? Like, let's not get defensive. And it's okay to be like, give me 5 minutes to just process this, or let me take a break from this conversation and chew on what you've told me and I'll come back to this, right? Like that's total, we're all fucking flawed. We all got flaws. So we all have room to grow. It's good to remember that. Yes, Emily, it's especially a gift from BIPOC to white folks. Yes. Me personally, my rule is I only call you in if you're a white folk. If I see some future with you. Like if I took time out of my day to call out every single white person that I encounter in my life, woo, child, that would be my entire life. That would be my entire life, right? I have enough on my plate as it is. And so, yeah, absolutely. Please take it as a gift. Don't take it as a defensive. Yes, Sarah has a great point. Offer up not just your skills, what you enjoy, but also what is within your COVID comfort level. Yeah, we need to honor our boundaries. We need to honor what we are capable of. Yeah, Sarah, it's a full-time job. It's a I mean, I think it's like 4 full-time jobs, but I digress. Anyway, any other high-level takes on brainstorm takeaways? Before we get into questions, let's wrap up this portion. Yeah, Emily has a good point. Any ideas we have probably already been had. And also I want to challenge and push back on that like we can come up with our own ideas, right? About what's possible. Dare to dream, right? I think one of our faults right now, honestly, critiques, is that we're not demanding the impossible. We're settling for what is possible. Yes, the Portland blocks are dope as fuck. Shout out to the blocks. Now it's a shout out. Okay. Yeah, so find the person who had them. Emily, yes, thank you for that clarification. So any ideas we have have probably already been had, so it's probably a good idea to go back to the source. That is a great point, and learn. We are capable of more than we know, says Kathleen. That's absolutely right. That is absolutely right. As I say all the time, one of the greatest strengths of capitalism, and wait until I finish this sentence. One of the greatest strengths of capitalism and like this bullshit system is that it has taken our ability to dream. So when you dream, you're already operating outside of that. You're already operating outside of the framework. So as cliche as it sounds, dare to fucking dream. Okay. And color outside of the damn lines that the state gives us. All right. That's my soapbox. Okay. Yes. Maria Mekaba is absolutely a person that you want to follow and do more study on this work. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sarah. Okay. Let's get into question and answer. This is a time for folks who have perhaps a little bit more experience on mutual aid to chime in on the chat and get me some answers. Any questions, folks? Let's get them in the chat. Could it be no questions? No, that can't be right. Okay, perfect. Jamie's on Stack.
Like I said, I don't know if people are just typing and if I just interjected, but I just want to ask, I know that you all mentioned earlier that, during your initial intake, you had like an overflow and then you did your triage. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But I was just wondering how, I guess, your mutual aid network went about disseminating, whether it was like an intake form or anything like that. And then also, I know you said, thankfully, your women of color leadership was able to vocalize that certain people should have been prioritized over others. But aside from that, I was wondering if you had any ways of determining how it was distributed other than that. I don't know, I guess just generally about distribution, because as I mentioned in my pod, I'm involved in mutual aid in the South Bay, a part of an organization called South Bay Community Care, and we're still trying to figure things out. So any information is greatly needed and helpful.
That is a great question. So I'll answer a little bit of it, and then I'd love for my other comrades to go in and fill us in. We essentially, for me, I saw my role as like a radicalizing for the folks who were doing the intake form. I was particularly on the medic team and on the lead team. So we had several kind of, when I talked about like holocratic methods of arrangement and like committees and stuff, I had my feet in about 2 or 3 of those. And so my role in the leads calls was consistently radicalizing the intake and the needs folks. And the needs folks were the ones who were taking in that information. It's beneficial, like I said, to already have folks who have a political analysis that is based at the very least on 3 things: gender, class, and race. Right. So you want to make so at the very least, those 3 lenses need to be at the forefront of everything that we do. And I also want to add sexual orientation and disability. So we have 5, right? And so those tangibly are lenses that we can apply when we look at folks. Folks self-selected how they identified, and then we assigned a priority tag to them. And so the more closer that they filled out to say like Black, trans, disabled, queer, race, gender, femme, then the closer it got them to that priority list, right? But I cannot overemphasize this enough, and I think Britt would agree with you, and a lot of the other comrades would agree with me on this, is that like you already have to have that baseline, right, of like a radical analysis and continue to improve that. And so we assign like priority numbers to it. Because like I said, we got overrun. We're still overrun. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we have more requests than we do funds. Yeah. So Emily, hit it.
Hey, I'd love to connect with you in more detail. We can like actually have like a dialogue as well about this one-on-one if you like. But yeah, so we have a triage rubric that basically puts those sort of categories as placing people in priority. The priority is really just the order in which we call people. We don't have a way to like say if you're priority 2, it means you get less money. We're not doing that. It's mostly just how fast we get to you. So that's the triage process as it stands in terms of what it looks like functionally. The call-in that we received was basically because we were taking a while to get back to people, and there were multiple like white people involved. One of the members of our network reached out on Slack and started to have a conversation about it. And then I was the one doing the triage. And for context, I'm half Middle Eastern, half white, queer, and I'm low to middle income. And so basically I had a conversation follow up with a woman of color that wanted to, learn more about this. And she decided to sort of take the lead on the triage process. She was concerned about, where the money was going. And that's also why I've started to collect the data around who is getting the funds and be more, who's getting the funds to be more accountable to the public, because we did receive a massive amount of funds. And that is the process as it stands right now. And we are still triaging. We did have to sort of recruit specific people that are Spanish speakers to get more of that information. So that is where it is right now. We don't have, right now, the triage process is a little bit more of getting to know the person, because we don't always have all of the information about that, because people can select what they choose to share about themselves. So that's another sort of interesting aspect of this is we want to give people the autonomy to share what they want of their identity. And so we can only really make decisions based off of what they share with us. But I'm really excited to share the accountability data. We just want to make sure that it's a lot of information, and we want to make sure it's readable and understandable to people. So that's why it's taking a bit to consolidate it. But that will open us up to feedback, and I imagine some people might be upset, some people might be happy. I hope that people are satisfied. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Emily. Fantastic. So I hope that answered your question. In any event, if you need further, definitely reach out to Eleanor, Emily. Yeah, Eleanor or Emily, or any other folks who have chimed in on the chat in terms of being part of the mutual aid network. It's ongoing work. It's not just a check the box thing, as I'm sure you've gathered. And then Tatum said, would it be a better start to start a Venmo, PayPal, etc. account for mutual aid network, or just encouraging people to directly redistribute funds to other individuals? My answer would be both. Both. Folks need to do their own Praxis, and also it's beneficial to have your own Venmo and your own PayPal. We had the benefit of having Ground Game LA's parent nonprofit, which is Power, who is our fiscal sponsor. We don't have a sponsorship, but like their fiscal sponsorship, GGLA. And so that's useful in terms of infrastructure to move funds, because when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, you need to, the IRS will be on your ass, of course. So keep that in mind. My advice would be to use nonprofits as your incubator for the tools and the infrastructure that you need, and then do your own thing, and always stay true to like these principles, right? Of like independence and collectivity and consensus. Okay. Someone was on stack. Cass?
Oh, actually, hey, Wendy, could I just chime in on
Yes,
what you were
please.
talking about? Yeah, I just want to say be very wary of tax liabilities and how you're bringing in that money, and just make sure you account for it. Like have some sort of way to account for money in and money out. A nonprofit gives you a very nice blanket, so you're not personally seen as gaining that income. If you do find yourself in a position where you have like a GoFundMe or some sort of a fundraiser that raises an insane amount of money, there are legal paperwork that you can file and do that. It's just extra steps. So I would just say make sure that you do your research. If you can find a lawyer that can do like a free tax consultation, that's good if you feel like it's going to get that way. PayPal and Venmo can be good because you can just keep the money in the PayPal account and never put it in your own bank account, but it becomes a weird way to shuffle money around. So there's some logistical concerns, but if you have more questions, feel free to email me, and I kind of helped work out that process for us. So I'd be more than happy to sort of tell you what we did.
Yes. Thank you so much for chiming in, Tim. Tim is one of our budget people for Ground Game and Mutual Aid LA. So grateful that you took that on. Okay. Who's next on stack? Empty.
Yeah, this is actually, thank you. First of all, thank you so much to everyone. I really appreciate all the work that every single person has done to make this network possible. And this presentation possible. Thank you. It's really helpful, and I'm very eager to present the slides to our pod, because I think the information that has been presented here by Wendy and others is essential. My question is regarding specifically the resource finder, which was ported over to Airtable. Does anyone know, and this is really nerdy, but it's really also important, is Airtable accessible by Android? Because, yeah, I would like to know that.
Okay, great question. If you have an answer to that, would you mind chiming in on the chat for me? We are short on time. Thank you so much for your comments and question, MD. If you have a question, if you have an answer to that question, please drop it in the chat for me. Let's see. We have Kathleen. Kathleen is asking, how does that impact people receiving the money? Can you clarify in the chat, Kathleen, what you mean by that? And then Emily has a direct answer to you. Yes, okay, and Lenore does. Kathleen, for us, the most we can legally distribute to an individual is $5.99 for tax purposes. Anything over that, you have to report it. Hopefully that answers your question. Eleanor, Kathleen, okay. So just scrolling through the chat. Okay, any other questions? I see some conversation going on about like 1099s. Yeah, our understanding, I think collectively, is that you don't have to report anything under $5.99. $5.99 US American dollars.
I actually had a quick question. I think my stack got lost in the.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, please.
No, you're all good. First, thank you again for providing like this space. It's been like really helpful and
Sweet.
informative. But I'm currently like my name is Cass and I'm working on I'm on Occidental's Diversity and Equity Board, and from like a fall student assessment survey that we got, like the data from there has driven like a whole other project to it. Two projects have like stemmed from that actually were related to mutual aid, and the first was our student-based like need fund that, due to administrational like roadblocks, ended up just becoming like a food and transportation fund, but that one is up and live right now. But because of the financial aid roadblocks that we hit with that project, right now I'm in the process of like independently establishing a mutual aid fund for Black students at Oxy. And I just had one question because, oh, actually a couple of questions, but some of them were answered earlier in this hour. But I'm currently in the process of like trying to create some sort of like working group or just organize a group of people that are going to be working on this initiative. But I'm not really getting a lot of people responding to it. And I understand, because a lot of people, especially like students during this time, there's the like demands that classes are bringing in addition to just like life and pandemic like responsibilities. And so I was just wondering like if anybody has like any tips to gather like community members or like stakeholders to organize. I'm mostly looking for folks that are like willing to organize the like management of funds and like distribution of funds at a time where like productivity is expected out of everybody and like everybody's energies are just like expended. So if there are any tips for that, I would like greatly appreciate it.
That's a great question. Capacity is thin right now. I'm gonna try to keep my answer short only because we are at a time and I like to respect people's times. I definitely would be interested in chopping it up with you, Cass, if you want to shoot me an email. My immediate answers would be work with what you have, the folks that you have already. My second answer would be like get in with folks who are already doing the work. Mainly like in your campus or Ground Game LA, mutual aid network, align with folks who are already doing that work. Does that answer your question more or less? We can get into more details. I would love to via email, and we've been corresponding too. So that's good too. Yeah, does that sound like a plan, Cass?
No, that actually sounds good. I think I've been trying to think like large scale about this project, but I feel like with what we have sounds more like it is very much attainable because we already have something established. So
it'll come with time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll come with time. Particularly because you're just starting out. So it makes sense to align yourself with folks who are already doing it and have that infrastructure. We were very blessed that the network came out of years of organizing already. So we were kind of like privileged and really blessed in that respect. So most of us going into this work already knew how everyone rolled. So there was like a really easy learning curve. But when you're just starting out, it could definitely get overwhelming. Let's reach out. Okay, last question. We are at time. Sarah, did you have a quick question?
I can ask it at a different time. Okay.
This is all the time. Okay, cool. No problem. As always, feel free to reach out to me. Hopefully you have my email. I will type it in once again, wendy@ivaw.org. If I do not have an answer, I will at the very least help you get an answer. Thank you so much, everybody, for chiming in, for your attention, for your presence, for your energy and your work today. If you are interested in furthering your analysis, furthering your study, getting more radical in this work, check out organizer Maria Mekaba. She is litty. Check her out. Any book by AK and PM Press. They make radical books. Check them out. There's also a table game if you love to play games. It's called Block by Block. It'll teach you about strategy. Wink, wink. Shout out, Britt. Check out CLDC. That's the Civil Liberties Defense Center. Those are the comrades up in Eugene, Oregon. They have a mutual aid webinar with Cindy Milstein, who is an anarchist legend, as well as another comrade of mine, Kat, who organizes with Food Not Bombs in Tacoma, Washington. Check that out.
The table game?
Excuse me?
Sorry, Wendy, the table game that you mentioned.
It's on the screen. It's called Block by Block.
Thank you.
Yep. Cool. So they also have a ton of other awesome webinars. So check out just their listing. If you have some free time, please do that. And you know what? Instagram is coming up strong right now with educational material. So just explore on Insta, like some really awesome handles. Indigenous Action, Indigenous Mutual Aid, Crime Think, Earth First are just some that like came to mind. And follow up with like comrades who have been on this call and have provided with their contacts. We're thrown down, and we love for y'all to get into formation. So yes, it is password protected. You have the CLDC webinar is password protected for security reasons because we practice operational security. So you would need to email them and then get you a password. Yeah. Always a good idea to practice operational security, OPSEC. All right, folks, it's been a privilege and an honor to be with you. Thank you so much. We will kick it for a little bit. If you want to, any extra questions, but out of respect for people's time, that is a close today. Good evening. Godspeed.
Thank you, Wendy. You're amazing. You're
Thank
a
you
gift.
for coming through.
Thank you so much. And thanks
Yes.
for posting that reminder. I totally would have forgotten. My brain is not working lately.
Same.
Thank you,
Same.
Wendy.
What's up, Emily? Have a good night, everyone. My music. Let's see here. All right.